ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
Check this out, we got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Breakfast Bankroll, live from Cape Cod. A sunny 38 degrees. Get those shorts ready locally. Beautiful out there. Nice to see. The snow is basically melted, and we're ready for some football as it is time. The headliner, it's finally time. Canes versus Ole Miss at the Fiesta Bowl tonight. And then Who's Your Daddy tomorrow night as Oregon and Indiana face off. I'm seeing some Indiana -4s there in the rematch. There is the Hoosiers won in Eugene, Oregon early in the year. So first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download the app. It is free. And of course, AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Steaks, seafood, chops, appetizers, wine. Terry's got it all. Head on over to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Without further ado, let's bring him in. Mr. Scotty Webb. What's up, Scott?
I envy the fact that you can wear shorts today.
I tell you, you get the 10, 15 degrees with the wind and the wind chill. Today I went out there, walked the dogs, and it felt beautiful out there. Birds chirping. And listen, we got a long way to go. I mean, it's January 8th. We're going to have a lot of cold, blustery weather, but it felt like one of those late February mornings as we got closer to March and maybe one little storm left. And next thing you know, we're going down Magnolia Lane and it's the Masters.
Well, the only thing we're dealing with is fog. I mean, it's, whatever. And it goes off, gets away by, 9, 10 o'clock. But I mean, whatever. People can't drive in the fog. They can't see and stuff. So whatever. I mean, that can be a problem, but it's not cold here for sure. I mean, we'll be 80 degrees today.
Oh, jeez. Before we dive into the football, listen, we're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Peach Bowl, of course, Oregon, Indiana. And I think I really do. I think I'm going to hit you up and follow you up. Saturday, 2 games, Sunday, 3 games in the NFL. I think we're going to do at least a Saturday. First game's not till 4:30. We're going to figure out a time. We're going to do some a weekend show at least. We haven't done one in a while, and we can talk NFL. How's that sound?
Hey, look, I already bet the NFL, so I'm done betting, so I'm ready to go. I like right now I'm working on baseball stuff, and we had a trade yesterday with Edward Cabrera, which I was pretty surprised about in terms of more or less what the Cubs gave up. I mean, they gave up their number 1 prospect, and then they gave up their number 11 prospect and some also, another guy. And then I'm starting to look, well, holy cow, why do people really like Edward Cabrera now? I mean, they didn't like him when he played with the Marlins that well. I mean, he's a good pitcher, but it's not like he's some ace somewhere. And then I'm starting to look, and I'm like, his WAR number is 1.9, his projections, and he's a 500ish kind of pitcher, and he's not even going to be the number one guy. Well, theoretically, he's not going to be the number one guy for the Cubs. So I'm like, they gave up their number one prospect for a guy who's not even going to be their number one guy. Theoretically, he might not even slot him in front of Imanaga. He might even be third. Like, holy crap, what are the Cubs doing? Anyway, that was just my thoughts.
Well, I want to stay there because I'm having a brain fart here because I was going to ask you two questions about the Cubs, and we were going to talk a little baseball before we dove into the game tonight. But Justin Steele, I don't know if and when he'll be back, number one. Number two, didn't they cut ties and let Imanaga go? Or was that someone else?
He's there. What happened was that they were gonna get rid of him, but he took the deal. Like whatever. It's like Trent Grisham did or whatever. There's only a few players that ever take the guaranteed offer or whatever it is. Whatever it's called. Anyway, he took it. He's there. So you got Boyd and Imanaga and all the also rans that they throw out there all the time. So the only thing that Cabrera gives them that's different than what they already have is he's the only guy on their whole roster in terms of starting pitchers that has velocity. I mean, he can throw hard. So the other guys, Matthew Boyd and Imanaga and those guys, they're not hard throwers. So he has that going for him as a different view, I guess, if you're in the batter's box and you're watching, from one day to the next, and you get Boyd, and then you get Imanaga, and then you get this guy. So it's going to be different that way. But in terms of what I thought they gave up, now I thought it was too much. Now when I looked at there's a website, I can't remember. I always forget what it's called, but they do analysis of trade value based off of the dollars and the trades and all the different stuff. They said it was a good trade. They actually thought that Chicago didn't give up enough because I guess the way it worked out is that the point value, if you want to call it that, for Cabrera was pretty high, and then the guys in return don't add up to that amount. So they got off cheap, which means their secondary guys that they gave up probably aren't great, not necessarily going to make it, but I don't know. You give up your top tier best prospect for a guy that's not going to be your number one. I just found it kind of interesting to see how that worked out. But the Marlins are acquiring a lot of that stuff, and in that same division, so to speak. I've heard rumor mill around Eugenio Suarez going to the Pirates. So if the Pirates were to get Eugenio Suarez plus some of the other stuff they've done, they're going to be really competitive in that division.
Timetable on Justin Steele.
He's projected to make 15 starts, which is half the season.
Okay. All-star break, maybe later, August 1st.
I'm not sure. I would have thought he'd come back a little bit before that, but my thought is around those guys. It depends on how they feel coming out of the rehab starts and the different stuff they have and how long they go. Some of those, if you really watch a guy go pitch in the minor leagues and do his rehab starts, it's usually 3 starts and then they're in the major leagues. A guy like this is going to make 6 or 7 starts in the minor leagues and then go to the big leagues because he's got to build up all that stuff again and kind of go from there. So he's a late season addition. He's a halfway through the season kind of guy, which certainly could help them on the playoff push. But I always will caution people to understand that when you are coming back from an injury, you're not the same pitcher the first year. You might be the second year, but not the first. So I would not expect the greatest things from Justin Steele as a difference maker. Sure, he can pitch innings. Sure, he can do a lot of stuff. But I don't think that he's going to be a difference maker this year. Maybe next year, but not this year.
Last question on the Cubs. They gave up their number one prospect, an outfielder. Does that put them back in play for Tucker?
Well, I think they should be in play for Tucker. I mean, think about their lineup. They got hitters everywhere. I mean, they're pretty deep in terms of the batters and stuff that they can do. But the consistency factor for those hitters isn't always the greatest. So they're streaky guys. And when they're all hitting good, they're scoring 12 runs a game. When they're not, they don't score anything. So I tend to think that they're going to need another bat. Now, I've heard some things that kind of shocked me a little bit from I don't know, Jim Bowden and some of these other guys talking and stuff that they believe that Cody Bellinger is now more of a front runner in terms of value to teams than Kyle Tucker is. And it's because he can play so many different positions and give them a similar type performance on offense. It's not the same offense, but it's similar, So and he's cheaper. So I if that's the case, why wouldn't they want to go get him? Which is what I'm hearing that they're trying to do right now, is try to get Bellinger instead of Tucker. So, and obviously the Yankees are in on Bellinger, so that changes the thoughts around how many teams are in on Bellinger versus how many teams are in on Tucker. So I don't know. I think the Tucker thing is backfiring on him. Meaning that, okay, well, he's the best hitter available and blah, 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 blah. And, he's just going to be naturally signed by some team and, get big money. Well, who's that going to be? I think teams are starting to look at him and go, well, maybe we can do this, or maybe we can do that, or maybe we can do this, and I don't have to pay him that much. I think that time frame in the middle of last season where he sort of went through, he got hurt and some other stuff, and then he kind of went dead on the bat for a little while and never finished out the year strong. And really, his home runs came early. His home runs didn't come late. So I think when you really think about what Kyle Tucker looks like to people, it's is he on a decline power-wise? Because who wants to go spend that much money on a singles hitter, I mean, I wouldn't want to go spend that much money on a single hitter. I mean, they can get Luis Rice for that.
All right, last question. All the people on social media, all the people that I've talked to, and again, unless someone comes from left field, right field, no pun intended there, Bregman's coming back. I have no idea what the numbers are. Bregman's coming back. Now, he didn't sign till early February last year, but that's where all the signs are pointing. Obviously, if if Bellinger does jump ship and go to the Cubs or whoever, then I think you'll see a full court press from the Yankees. All right, enough's enough. We're going to go for Kyle Tucker there. My question, though, is Bo. Back here in Boston, if someone swoops in and gets Bregman, that's okay. Then we're just going to pivot and go get Bo. Well, I don't think upper management is thinking that. Now, Sox Nation, we're the only team there's 30 baseball teams. We're the only team that has not signed a free agent. That's kind of scary. Boston Red Sox are the only team not to sign a free agent. We've made some trades and we've upgraded, yada, yada, yada. What's going on with Bo let's play the game, if Boston signs Bregman?
Well, I think my opinion is that he's still welcome to go to Toronto. My thought would be is that they signed that Japanese player. That Japanese player is a third baseman, so that doesn't really affect Bo Bichette. And to be honest, I don't think they made an overpay for that guy to play third base, so they didn't spend all their money. And Toronto's got a lot of money, so I guess he could go there. When you start to think about where does Bo Bichette play and who wants Bo Bichette, I think most teams would naturally say, yeah, we want him. But at the same time, where does he play? Is he a shortstop or is he a second baseman? And I think that changes the dynamic of how much you pay him. If he's a shortstop, you pay him a lot. If he's a second baseman, you're not going to pay him as much. So I think I don't know what he thinks his value is. So I don't know where Bo Bichette ends up, to be honest. I think that's an interesting dilemma there. I thought it was kind of interesting how the Kyle Tucker market is, and now I sort of think I don't think that Bo Bichette and Bregman are tied together in any way, meaning that okay, they go spend the money like the Red Sox. They go spend the money and they get Bregman, or somebody else gets Bregman, and then can they pivot and go get Bo Bichette? Well, it's the same money, but it's not necessarily the same position. So if it's not the same position, how do you work through who's on your team and your roster? Now, my opinion is they could use a second baseman if he's willing to go there and play second base for the Red Sox. That's probably a really good move for them. So my opinion would be is I think he's going to go back to Toronto because I don't know he's going to get anything better. I just don't. I don't know who's going to jump in there and go. I think difference maker wise, as of right now, there's one free agent out there that's going to help a team either get to the playoffs, do something and that's Framber Valdez. If he's a top 10ish pitcher in Major League Baseball, you go get him. He's going to give you a better result than Bo Bichette will. He's going to give you a better result than Bregman will. Now, some because those are offensive guys play every day, but he's a 32 game starter, 200-ish strikeout kind of guy, and those guys don't grow on trees. He's going to be a number one wherever he can go land. So I think he's the best free agent that you could go sign currently that would help your team. If I don't know what the Baltimore Orioles are doing, and I know they're in on him, and I know the Mets are saying that they're in on him, but the Baltimore Orioles need him. If the Baltimore Orioles get him, they're right there competing for the AL East, just like all the other teams are, because now they got pitching to go with their young hitting and Pete Alonso and everything else that they've done. I think that puts them in a pretty good spot. Bradish will be back and be healthy, and I think people underestimate how good he is as a pitcher. He's a great number two. And then look, they got that guy from Rogers who looked like he got his old stuff and looked really good from Miami, and he's your number three. Then they got a pretty good rotation. I mean, you're talking about Framber Valdez, a top 10-ish pitcher, Bradish, who's certainly a top 30-ish pitcher, and Rogers, who's right there with him in the top three of their rotation. And then you got, anytime you can throw out there Gunnar Henderson by name and follow him up with Alonso, I think you got a pretty good batting structure to build around. And all of a sudden, and they went and got a couple guys in relief pitching. I can't remember who they are off the top of my head. I can look, but I know they did. So they've increased their position very good if they can get that one pitcher. If they get him, now we're going to have, Baltimore in the race, Boston in the race, Toronto in the race, and the Yankees in the race. And we haven't said anything about the Rays are always there. So it's going to be a crazy American League East, man.
And lastly, I heard, again, they didn't spend a lot of money on the Japanese third baseman, and then maybe to take pressure off for him, or maybe because there's still some pieces out there in the free agent market, they've actually used the word super utility, where this guy is willing and able to bounce around. As you talked about Bo coming to Boston and playing second, well, Story does get hurt. We don't know Marcelo Meyer and his injuries. So having a Bo, the flexibility to bounce back and forth short to second, that's one thing. And in Boston, a lot of the so-called experts maybe a little coy, playing a little cat and mouse. They're penciling in Rafaela right now at second base.
Yeah, I think he's a better center fielder, isn't he? I mean, like
Yeah.
I think he's a great defensive center fielder, and for whatever reason, I think Boston thinks he's a pretty good hitter. Well, I don't. I think he's a. I think he's your number 9 hitter eventually. I mean, I think, and whether I know he's lower in the order normally anyway, but sometimes he bats up towards the top every once in a while, and I just can't see. I can't see him being much more than I would rather keep that guy in center field and let him go play center field. But the question becomes is what do you have? If he's your best second baseman based off of what you have, then you got to play him there. So I guess one of the things I get not liking about some of these teams and some of these managers is they feel as though they got to get guys at bats, which I get that. So they monkey move them around all over the defense. And I got to play this guy at third base today so I can get him some at bats. I got to play him at first base today, or I got to put him in right field, or I got to put him in left field, or whatever. Well, there is a thought process that basically says, how strong is my team on defense? And if you're gonna just, okay, I got to get this guy at bats, well, that's great. But if you're softening your defense to the degree in which it's a problem, and you're not putting your best team out there all the time on defense, you're going to lose games that you should win. And not only that, I think what happens a lot of times that people don't think about is your starting pitchers are reliant upon the defense. And no matter what you want to say, they can be dominant on the mound all you want. The guys are still going to put the ball in play. And think about some of those really good pitchers that go out there, like Crochet, right? Crochet's going to go out there. He's going to strike out a lot of guys, but he's going to really rely on the ones that hit the ball. The guys are going to field them. And just think about it this way. If they get a bloop there here, or a little single there, or whatever, and it's because the defense isn't aligned properly, or the guy can't cover the range that the other guy can, and then all of a sudden they score a run or two in a situation that they shouldn't have if they had their best defense out there, your starting pitcher starts to lose faith, and then he starts to sit there and go, I got to strike out everybody, So, and I think you see that sometimes in these starting pitchers. I mean, you really do, and I think that's a bad formula, and I think Major League Baseball is moving that way. Look at the Detroit Tigers, man. They play everybody everywhere, and it's like, dude, put your guys where they're the best to help you win, and your pitchers will love you better for it.
We broke down Miami, Mississippi yesterday. Oregon, Indiana goes tomorrow. Again, we'll be back tomorrow and to break that down. We'll recap the Miami Ole Miss game. And then Saturday we'll come in and we'll talk some NFL on Wild Card Weekend. Do you want to go back to Miami and Mississippi? Any more ideas and thoughts, breakdowns, or do you want to go to Oregon, Indiana right now?
Well, I think Oregon, Indiana, the line's moving a little bit. So, because I think that opened at 3.5. I think it's like at 4.5 now, something like that. But so we can talk about that game if you want to. I can do that, or if you want to talk an NFL game, we can do that. However you want to do it. Obviously, I'm prepared. So, in any way you want to go, we can do whatever you want. So, however you want to do it.
Right now at the circa, Indiana, Oregon. Indiana 3.5 with a 48 over -15 cents. So we're back to 3.5 here. That 4 seems to be the magic number. We broke down Miami Miami Ole Miss. I sent out about a 2.5 minute clip of you on our show yesterday. That's on all our social media. You can go back and watch that now, if you want. So let me bring on games on paper. Let me do this. La 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 la.
So did you like that wheel breakdown yesterday? You know, the
Yep.
graph,
Yep.
because I can show you it on here for this game.
Okay. Let me go here. Share screen. Go here. Look at this kid go here, huh? Boom. Boom. Boom.
The colors are a lot better for being able to to being able to see where the overlaps are and stuff on the wheel chart there for these two games. So what you're looking at in this game is on the left is Oregon's offense, on the right is Indiana's offense. So on the left, when you start to look at it, where you see the little light green down there, that's the advantage that Oregon has against the Indiana's defense. All the little red trimming on the outside is the advantage that the Indiana defense has over the Oregon, and everything else is kind of blurred, the brownish color is where they're kind of, I wouldn't say even, but where they're matched up. And then on the right hand side, look at how much space that is red that shows, and there's just a tiny little sliver of green there. That's the Indiana advantage on offense. So I know we sit here and talk about, these teams, and I think what's surprising me in this particular game is how good Indiana's defense is. And if you haven't really watched Oregon, I know they didn't do really good against James Madison, but how many points did Texas Tech get on on Oregon? They got none. So they're going to play Indiana this week. So I'm surprised at how a lot of people are sitting here going, let's bet this game over. Let's bet this game over. And the number has went from 46 and a half to up to 48 and a half now. And I sit there and I just had to have a conversation this morning with my computer, because I've already bet this game, Jeff. And this is an interesting dynamic that I didn't really even think about. So we can get into this. So I bet this game under at 46. I bet 46 under plus 105. I've already bet that. Now, it's not the best bet today on this game. I bet Indiana minus the 3.5 too, but at under 46. So my question then was to go back to the AI, and I'm like, look, man, this game's 48 and a half now. Our projection says it's going to go under the number, and now at 48 and a half, why don't I double dip, right? And as I started talking to him, he goes, no, don't do that. Don't. He said, don't go back in there and get it. He said, here's where your value is. And I didn't even think of it this way, because I'm thinking, I bet it under 46. Now I can get it under 48 and a half. I got 2 more points, or 2.5 more points. So he says, no, you got to remember that when we bet it at 46, the market thought the right value for the game was, say, 46 and a half to 47 and a half. So we were on edge. Our hedge was good to that number. Well, now the market thinks the number should be, 47 and a half, 48 and a half, 49, somewhere in there. So if you're betting it at under 48 and a half, you lost your leverage, because the leverage to the market thinks the number is 48 and a half, 49. He said, you're not getting ROI based on what the market thinks. You might be getting ROI based off of the number that you already bet it at, but there's no reason to go back and bet it again. And I started thinking about that, going, that's not how I would have thought about it. I would have thought about it going, I got 46. Now I can get 48 and a half. I think I should get 48 and a half and be like, secure those 2.5 more points. He's like, no. That's bad. That's not how ROI works on what you're actually betting, because the market thinks it's X, and your variance to the market isn't big enough. When we were at 46, we were getting a pretty good number from 47 or whatever it was. That's why you got plus money. Now it's at 48 and a half. And if you go bet it at 48 and a half, the market thinks that's where it's supposed to be. You're not getting the same value. Do you think that's a good thought?
Well, it's kind of one of those, and I would have thought the same thing as well. Shit, if I liked it at 46, I got to like it at 48 or 48 and a half. But I guess maybe what the AI is saying as well is, if you were getting a full 3 or 3.5, quote unquote, a field goal, then it's worth the bite at the apple. But you're chasing 2.5, at which in football terms, a field goal is going to beat you. You see what I'm saying? So
go ahead.
No, so the thought process, I mean, just doing basic math and reading charts and knowing both of these teams, I'll take it a step further, Scotty. It's almost the first one to 27 here, because the model has 24-24 theoretically, though Indiana is 3-point favorites. So you would almost lean to the right and looking at all the numbers right now, and it's probably telling you Indiana's going to get to 27. The Oregon team total is 24.5 juiced under. They're telling you Oregon is going to not get over 24, but the market is now telling you that Indiana will get over 24, and in football terms, 23-24, they're going to get to 26 or 27.
Yeah, so when we ran the numbers and came up with it's 28-20. 28-20 Indiana, and then if you go, there's been another announcement that the Oregon running back, forget what his name is now, but the Oregon running back has a broken collarbone. He's not going to play, one of them, and I know they have a lot of different running backs, and they have a lot of, but one of their primary running backs isn't going to play in this game. So obviously that's a little bit of a detriment to what Oregon can do in those formats, in those spots. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you, because I thought that was pretty cool that it came back with that information. I didn't bet it that way. So I did bet it at 46. I'm not going to tell people not to bet it at 48 and a half if you didn't bet it at 46, because I think the under's the right play in this game, as the market keeps running things out there. But let me sort of look at it this way too for you. So when you're looking at the left bubble there on the left chart, where Oregon kind of has some things, and we've seen this from Oregon, that they have an edge on explosive percentage, so explosive offense. They have an edge on pass explosives and rush explosives. So that's what it is. It's just the explosives on offense. That's all the advantage they have. So don't think that they won't make a couple of explosive plays in this game, because they will. It'll happen that way. But when you start to look at where the edge is on the defensive side for Indiana, line yards, stuff rate, rushing EPA, late downs success rate, EPA per play, pass success rate. So they've got a pretty dominant edge on defense. And it's kind of like yesterday when we were talking about what Miami can do to Mississippi. It's sort of the same way, in terms that this Indiana defense is pretty disruptive. I don't know if people have gone back to look at the data from the game in the first time. Do you know that Dante Moore was sacked 6 times against Indiana? 6 times. So don't think they can't put pressure on the quarterback and all that stuff, because they can. Now, on the other side of that, when you look at the kind of the other blob over there, look at all that red that they've got. So they've got big play advantages. They've got havoc advantages. They've got late down, early down success rate, and they can run the ball against them. So I think that there's a lot of edge going into this game just on the matchup side of things that suits Indiana. When Indiana had a plan before, they had to play in Oregon. And that was a 30-20 win for them. The AI, and we're going back and forth on this. We don't think this is going to be quite that same way, but at the same time, it's going to be pretty close because there's not a whole lot of difference between what they do. So I guess the biggest way to break this game down and how I would look at this is let me go back up here to my screen here. So we're looking at obviously a team in Indiana that hasn't lost, and Oregon, the only loss they have is to Indiana. So that's kind of neat how they get a chance to I guess avenge that loss is a good way to say it. So when you started thinking about it, then you go, well, Indiana beat Ohio State. Indiana destroyed Alabama. And Oregon had a pretty good game against Texas Tech. Well, how much do you really put into the Oregon-Texas Tech game that makes you think that they're going to be real dominant in this game? Well, think about Texas Tech. They were a good defense, and they showed that they were a pretty good defense. And they couldn't do anything on offense. But the reality becomes that's a first-year team in these college football playoffs. And, it's a kind of a team that would be similar to the way Indiana was built last year, where they were all kind of coming in together for the first time into nil money and all that stuff. That's what Texas Tech was. So the experience factor for Texas Tech will help them next year, but the experience factor certainly helped Oregon here. Well, I think Indiana's got the experience factor that helped them last year. They built upon that. I think they're getting better. And I think that this is not a spot where you can go, Oregon's going to be dominantly better on defense. We see that they don't match up that well. So there's some edges there for Indiana. So I think when you start to think about it, you go, all right, well, what do we really look at here? You've got some pretty cool stuff. So EPA, Oregon's number 4, Indiana's number 3. On yards per play, Oregon's number 1, Indiana's number 5. Available yards, Oregon's number 3, Indiana's number 2. Success rate, Oregon's number 13, Indiana's number 3. Points allowed, points scored. I don't know if people really realize how good Indiana's defense is. We talked about the scoring and stuff. They allow 10.6 points a game. And Oregon's defense allows 14.4 points a game, and everybody's betting this thing over. Jeff, when you're got two great defenses, you don't go bet overs. That's the first thing you don't go do. Now I get it. People think, okay, this team's got offense because one team scores 39 points a game and the other one scores 40. Well, your defense can, and they've already played, so they're going to make some adjustments and do different things. Don't be surprised if this is well under the number. And the defense it's a slugfest. It can be like that. So as we kind of look at this stuff, and again, I'm going to throw this out there and tell you that this is my favorite data point. It's where I start everything from. If there's 100 college football, I don't think there's them. So we'll just say there's 50 college football games on a Saturday. I don't run every one of them through the AI and go, hey, what's the best one to bet on? I start with yards per point margin and look at who has the edge and how dominant that edge is. and then look at it compared to the line, because because the way I worded it yesterday is perfect. It's how efficient an offense is to score points, and then how hard is it for the opponent's defense to score points based on yards, and what does that margin look like? Because you're taking offense and defense for one team, offense and defense for the other team. And here you go. So these are two very good teams at that. And Oregon is plus 4.1. That's very good. But it's nowhere close to what Indiana is. Not close. Indiana, 11.6. So they maximize yards into points and force opponents to grind it out. And then when you look at Oregon, they're really good too at that number, but they're going to be more prone to stall than Indiana is. So I like the idea that you have a more efficient team in Indiana to go start to begin with than Oregon does. We talked about the explosives. Oregon's going to get some of those, and that's how they may stay in this game. Turnover margin, Indiana is elite when it comes to turnovers. I think they're in the top 5, top 6 of all the teams in college football. And of course, Mendoza is number 3 in quarterback QBR. And everybody likes Moore over there, but he's 18th and he's younger. So he's more apt to make these mistakes. And then when you start to break them down and you look at them, you're going to end up with Oregon's explosiveness against the defense for Indiana, and I think they're going to stymie them enough. They're going to hold and not break and not allow a ton of these big plays. So it's going to be Oregon having to drive the football. They're going to have to make the routine play. And in my mind, if you're going to have to make the routine play, what does Indiana do well? They just line up and punch you in the mouth. That's what they do. Line up and punch you in the mouth. They're going to run the ball for 3 or 4 yards. They're going to throw the ball for 5 or 6 to 10 yards right down the field. And then a big play opens up and all of a sudden they're in the end zone. So I think that's kind of how that works. Indiana, the biggest advantage they have on offense, and you can see it over here, is early down success. They are very good. They dominate the early downs. And then what the biggest factor is they dominate third downs. So think about it this way. If you can go get 4 or 5 yards on first down and have short third downs to get, and then you're great at getting them, they actually get them third down successes 56.5%, number 2 in the country. And they're going to face an Oregon's defense that allows third down success. So it's going to be interesting how that matchup works. Indiana may not come off the field. So then as it kind of comes down, you start looking at it and where it comes out. I think overall what you run into in this game is a dominant factor for Indiana to hold the ball, to get their first downs. I think, too, they're in that zone of we've done this, we've been here before. I think the matchups are out here in a sense that it actually favors Indiana. And, I like Coach Lanning, but Signetti, what are you going to say? Are you going to say that he's not doing what he's – I think that's a great thing. So as the AI came through and what we've done and all the stuff we did, it came out 28-20. And so with a confidence rating, yesterday's confidence rating that we talked about was so high. I couldn't believe it was so high for Miami. Well, this confidence rating is 80. That's super high too. It's not low by any stretch. It's 80. So that means 10,000 runs at this. 8 out of 10 times they cover this number. So the confidence is great to take Indiana. So what we did and how I bet this game was, I bet this game Indiana -3.5. And I didn't put quite as much money on it as I did the Miami bet, but it's pretty close. But it's a little less than that. And then I put a little less than that on the under. I bet this game under, and I like the idea that I got plus money on the under. And I think when you're making your betting portfolio, you want to sort of have, okay, well, that game didn't win. Well, these other two picked that up. That game lost. Well, it doesn't matter. Those other two won, right? So, but your goal is to win all of them. And, I sit here and say all of that stuff. I'm not going to win every single bet I make. But in college football right now, I'm 70 wins, 44 losses. That's 61%. I'll put that against anybody. So I'm pretty confident in what I'm saying and what I'm doing, and we'll see how it plays out.
Last question I have for you today is the Miami Hurricanes play tonight, currently at the circa -3, -120, a 52.5 over -15 cents. Good morning to Mr. Benson and Mr. Stevens. When you're the dog, I'm not saying you're not expected to win. And they were the dog against A&M, and they dominated, which a lot of people were waiting for that shoe to fall off, which it did against Texas, and then, of course, against Miami. Their next game against Ohio State, a lot of people liked them to cover. They didn't like them to win. And they kind of dominated that game. They're one win away from playing for a national title at home at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Now they're the favorite. Now, you and I combined, we got about 100 years of betting experience here. The mindset of the dog now versus the target as the favorite. Thoughts about that, Scotty, where now the world is jumping on the Hurricanes. And no disrespect to Ole Miss, to Chambliss. If Chambliss plays like he did last week, Ole Miss can obviously win that game. The story of where is Lane? Thanks, Lane. Start stepping, Lane. We're winning without you, Lane. If Ole Miss wins tonight, that will be the headliner. Lane who? Good luck at LSU. But the thoughts of being the dog, now the favorite and the target on the chest.
Well, let me look at this one way, because my answer to that, I think, is going to be I don't recall, and I don't have it broke down in terms of I don't have it broke down in terms of where Miami ranked all season. Like, okay, what were they week 1? What were they week 2? What were they? I don't have that. But I can tell you this. I know that at the beginning of the season, Miami was very well respected.
Yes.
They were a very top-notch team. And in my world, in my thought process, I thought they were one of the best teams in college football. I thought, I didn't think Ohio State was going to be as good as they turned out to be. I thought Ohio State would be kind of 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, 6, 7, maybe top 10-ish. But obviously they start winning, and they weren't number 1 to start the season, Ohio State. So as all of that stuff kind of transpires, you have Miami beat Notre Dame, and then Miami beat Boston College, or is that Boston College? BCU, it's not Boston College. And then do you remember that the whole big thing was, okay, USF just beat Florida and they're going to come. Well, they went to Miami and Miami beat them 49-12. Miami couldn't have been rated any higher at those moments in time in terms of how great they were. And then they beat Florida 26-7, and they beat Florida State, and then they lost to Louisville. And then they destroyed Stanford, and then they lost in overtime to SMU, games they shouldn't be losing, right? So that's when everybody goes, well, Miami's not as good as they were. Let's write them off and blah, blah, blah. So here's my thought around the dog thing that you mentioned there and where they are. I think that Miami thinks they're still one of the best teams in the country, and I think they kind of recovered that. Now, I would tell you that we watched NC State kind of get better as the season went along. They got a pretty good quarterback. They weren't the greatest team in the world, but they got beat by Miami 41-7, and then Miami went and destroyed Virginia Tech, and then this Pittsburgh team was pretty good with that other quarterback that started playing. They beat Pittsburgh 38-7 in Pittsburgh. And then they beat Texas A&M 10-3, and they beat Miami, or they beat Ohio State. My thought is that they've had this the whole time. I don't think they believe they're an underdog to anybody. So when it comes to kind of that change, if you will, okay, well, maybe they didn't feel like when they played Ohio State that they wanted to see how they stood out, right, and stacked up. I think it's easy, meaning that when you have a dominant offensive line and you have a dominant defensive line, you feel like you can play against anybody. And you've got a quarterback that's been in college football for 35 years, the Carson Beck kid. And, they like that Malachi Tony kid, little scooter running guy. So I think when you really think about where Miami's head is, I don't think they're the number one team and haven't thought that they have been the number one team for a long time. So when they play Mississippi, I think they think they're naturally going to be the favorite. So I don't think there's that, hey, last week we were the dog, now we're the targeted. I think they feel like they're the targeted team the whole time. And when you think about the ACC, who's better than them? Clemson. Maybe Clemson was thought to be better than them at the beginning, but when, Clemson fell apart, I don't think anybody thinks they were anybody. I don't think any team, and I get it, they didn't play for the ACC championship and, Duke and, what was it, Duke and whoever Duke played, I don't remember. Duke and Virginia or something, I don't remember who it was. But all of that stuff is hocus pocus. Miami's been the best team in the ACC all season. I think that Miami is a top-notch team, and I think they'll give Indiana, if it works out this way, I think they'll give Indiana everything Indiana can ask for, because I think that's the strength of Indiana is their offensive line, defensive line, and then you got offensive. It's going to be a slugfest in the trenches between those two teams, and obviously the quarterback play is going to be important, and they're kind of mirror teams. They really kind of are. So when you think about that, think about if you put Indiana on this field against Old Miss, what would the line look like? Miami is just as close to a team like Indiana as there is, as far as I'm concerned.
I think I saw both look-ahead lines. Oregon favored against Miami in the championship game, short number there, and then Indiana also favored against Miami as well. So we can't wait. Myself and Scotty will be back tomorrow, same time. In about 28 minutes, Matt Grissom and Nick Cathcart will be on at the same time. Going to talk some more NCAAF. We're going to talk some college baseball as well. Shout out to PB as always. Thank you so much for retweeting the show. Everyone here new to us. Year number 11 for the ECSI group. Me and Scott got some big stuff working in the back end here for the WBC and, of course, baseball season. But we got some football to talk about prior to that. Myself and Scotty will be back on Saturday as well to break down NFL Wildcard Weekend as well. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at DC Sports Invest, the one and only Mr. Scotty Webb at Webby20 MLB. Wish everyone a blessed day. Go grab that espresso and a bagel. We'll be back in 27 minutes. Stay tuned.